Camera flashes exploded like shooting stars at the entrance to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The 2025 Met Gala was not just an event, but a constellation of celebrities orbiting around the most extravagant fashion on the planet. Priyanka Chopra delicately adjusted the train of her Versace gown, a masterpiece of flowing fabric that seemed to capture the essence of this year's theme, modern mythologies. Nick Jonas, by her side, wore an outfit that perfectly complemented his wife's, a deconstructed tuxedo with details that evoked ancient deities reinterpreted for the 21st century. The couple exchanged knowing glances before hitting the red carpet, that moment of shared vulnerability that precedes total exposure. "Are we ready for this?" Nick whispered, adjusting his tie with a hint of nervousness that few would notice. Priyanka replied with a smile that had won billions of hearts around the world. "Together, we always are." The Met's grand staircase, transformed into a catwalk for fashion's wildest dreams, witnessed the couple's arrival with the elegance that had made them global icons. Reporters shouted questions, photographers begged for poses, and fans, restrained by barriers, cheered with each step the couple took toward the museum's entrance. If you've been following this story up to this point, don't forget to leave a like and comment on your favorite moment from this year's Met Gala. Your opinion is essential for us to continue bringing you exclusive content about the behind-the-scenes of celebrities. Inside the museum, the atmosphere changed. Exclusivity replaced public spectacle, and real interactions began. Priyanka and Nick navigated the main hall with the ease of veterans, greeting colleagues, exchanging sincere and sometimes forced compliments, the social dance that everyone here knew so well. "Pri, you look absolutely stunning," Zendaya commented, as she approached Tom Holland. "That dress looks like it was created specifically for you." The actresses exchanged hugs as the event's official photographers captured the moment for digital posterity. It was during the chat with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds that Priyanka noticed something strange. One of the event attendees, apparently distraught, was whispering urgently to one of the organizers, casting glances in his direction. Nick noticed the subtle change in his wife's posture and followed her gaze, frowning slightly. "Did something happen?" Ryan asked, ever aware of the social dynamics around him. Priyanka forced a smile, too professional to show any concern in public. "Probably nothing," she replied, but her instincts told her otherwise. The assistant finally approached, excusing himself with strained politeness. "Mrs. Chopra Jonas, Mr. Jonas, could I speak to you privately for a moment?" His tone was low-key, but the urgency was palpable. The couple excused themselves to their friends and followed the young man into a side hallway, away from prying eyes. "There's been an incident," the assistant began, looking visibly uncomfortable. "One of the temporary staff hired for the event was caught photographing your personal documents in the dressing room. We believe he may be an undercover paparazzi." Priyanka's blood ran cold. In her bag, tucked away in her dressing room, were not only her personal cell phone, but also documents related to a confidential humanitarian project she planned to announce in the coming weeks, work with refugee children that required absolute discretion to protect those involved. Nick immediately assumed a protective stance. "What exactly was photographed? Where is this person now?" His normally melodious voice had taken on a clipped tone that few would associate with the ever-smiling singer. "He was detained by security, but he already sent some images. We're trying to track where, but," the assistant hesitated, glancing nervously at Priyanka. "Among the documents was a medical letter addressed to you. It seems he specifically targeted her." The world seemed to slow down around Priyanka. The doctor's note. The one that confirmed her condition that she wasn't ready to share with the world yet, especially not like this, not as a scandal manufactured by click-hungry tabloids. She exchanged a look with Nick, both of them instantly understanding the magnitude of what was about to happen. "How much time do we have?" Priyanka's voice was firmer than she expected, years of experience handling public relations crises taking over. The assistant consulted his device, his face pale in the hallway's artistic lights. "Minutes, maybe." He used an instant transmission app. "We're trying to intercept, but..." Nick wrapped his arm around her waist, a gesture of support that the cameras wouldn't capture. "We need a plan, Pri." His eyes held determination, not panic, a quality that had always impressed her about him. "We're not going to let them control our narrative." The doctor's note contained information about Priyanka's recently diagnosed autoimmune condition, a condition that, while not life-threatening, would significantly impact her upcoming projects and, more importantly, her personal plans with Nick. Plans that included the possibility of expanding their family, now complicated by new medical protocols. "We can go back to the event as if nothing had happened," the assistant suggested, clearly uncomfortable with the magnitude of the situation. "The security team is working to contain the leak, and our lawyers have already been contacted." Priyanka shook her head, a resolution forming in her mind. "No. Let's not pretend. That would only be delaying the inevitable." She looked at Nick, who nodded in silent understanding. "We need allies. Now." The couple returned to the main room with studied calm, years of acting serving a purpose more personal than any role they had ever played. They quickly located Lupita Nyong'o, a close friend of Priyanka's who is respected for her unwavering integrity in the industry. "We need you," Priyanka whispered, as they appeared to be engaged in casual conversation. Lupita, immediately sensing the gravity in her friend's voice, maintained her smile for the cameras as she leaned in to listen. Within moments, she was quietly mobilizing other trusted allies. In an adjacent room, quickly transformed into a makeshift headquarters, gathered Priyanka, Nick, Lupita, Reese Witherspoon, known for her activism on privacy issues, and Edward Norton, whose experience in crisis management was as impressive as his work on screen. "This is more than an invasion of privacy," Reese declared, the outrage evident in his controlled voice. "This is a medical violation. We have case law on our side, and I can assure you that my legal team will be with you until the end." Edward, ever the pragmatist, was already on the phone with contacts on social media platforms. "We are working to block the spread, but we need a strategy for when this inevitably leaks. Silence will only fuel speculation." Nick, who had remained thoughtful, finally spoke. "What if we come forward? Not with a formal declaration, but something more human." His eyes met Priyanka's, conveying an idea that didn't need to be spoken between them. "A controlled disclosure," Lupita agreed, immediately understanding. "Not as victims of a leak, but as people choosing to share their journey on their own terms." Priyanka felt a wave of gratitude for these friends, not just celebrities sharing an exclusive space, but true allies in a time of vulnerability. "We need to do this now, tonight, before the narrative escapes us completely." The plan quickly took shape. Priyanka and Nick would make a brief appearance on stage during the dinner, ostensibly to thank the organizers but really to share an honest glimpse into their reality. Not full medical details, that would remain private, but enough to humanize the situation and disarm the sensationalists. As they prepared to return to the main event, Priyanka felt her phone buzz. It was a notification from a notoriously ruthless gossip account, exclusive, Priyanka Chopra's medical secret revealed, career at risk? Accompanied by a partial image of the doctor's letter, strategically cropped to maximize speculation. Time was up. The Met Gala continued in its calculated splendor, oblivious to the drama unfolding behind the scenes. Anna Wintour, with her impeccable social radar, noticed Priyanka and Nick's momentary absence, but there was nothing in her expression that betrayed any concern as she chatted with Meryl Streep and George Clooney. "It's online," Edward muttered, showing his phone to the group. The sensational headline was now spreading like digital wildfire, each share adding wilder speculation. "They're insinuating you have a terminal condition, Pri. It's absurd." Priyanka took a deep breath, years of meditation helping her center her thoughts. "So that's how it's going to be." She looked at Nick, who was holding her hand tightly. "We'll do this our way." Reese was already coordinating with her legal team via text, while Lupita had quietly briefed a few reputable journalists at the event, not with details, but with a warning to hold off on repeating unfounded rumors. "I got a hold of Anna," Edward said, returning after a brief absence. "She's rearranging the schedule to give you a moment during dinner. 3 minutes, no more. She understands the seriousness of it." Their return to the main ballroom was a masterclass in acting. Priyanka and Nick smiled at acquaintances, posed for official event photographers, and no one, except perhaps the most trained eyes, could detect the emotional storm beneath their composed expressions. "Are you okay?" Zendaya whispered as she passed them, her instincts sensing something was wrong. Priyanka nodded subtly, promising with her eyes to explain later. Female solidarity, so often underappreciated in Hollywood, manifested itself in small gestures of support. The Met Gala dinner, traditionally a spectacle of strategic conversation and networking disguised as socializing, proceeded at its usual pace. Artfully composed dishes were served and photographed more than consumed, while the buzz of hundreds of conversations filled the air. Anna Wintour rose gracefully, silencing the room with her presence before she even spoke. Tonight we celebrate not only fashion as an art form, but the extraordinary people who bring these creations to life. I would like to invite two special guests to share a few words, Priyanka Chopra Jonas and Nick Jonas. The polite applause that followed masked the curious stares. It wasn't on the schedule for any guest to speak tonight. Priyanka felt the weight of hundreds of eyes as she walked with Nick to the small stage, each step measured and deliberate. "Good evening, everyone," Nick began, his performer's voice finding strength even in this vulnerable moment. "Normally, we would simply be enjoying your company on this extraordinary evening, but unexpected circumstances have brought us to this stage." Priyanka took the microphone, her magnetic presence immediately capturing the room's undivided attention. "Just minutes ago, my private medical information was stolen and published online without consent. Rather than allow rumors and speculation to control the narrative, we decided to share our truth." A hush fell over the room. Even the waitstaff froze in their tracks, frozen in the intensity of the moment. Priyanka continued, her voice steady despite her pent-up emotion. "I was recently diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. It's not life-threatening, it's not a cause for panic, and it's certainly not the end of my career, as some are already speculating." Nick put his arm around her waist, a gesture of support visible to all. "We are sharing this not because we were forced to, but to show that even public figures deserve dignity in their private moments. Priyanka's condition is manageable, and we are facing this as we face everything in our lives, together, with determination and hope." Priyanka concluded with words that would resonate far beyond that night. Vulnerability is not weakness. Choosing when and how to share our personal struggles is a right we all deserve. We appreciate your respect and support as we navigate this chapter of our journey. The momentary silence that followed was quickly replaced by a wave of applause, not the polite, restrained kind typical of these events, but something genuine, spontaneous, and deeply human. The applause grew louder, turning into a standing ovation that surprised even the event's most seasoned organizers. Celebrities who rarely showed genuine emotion in public wiped away discreet tears. Anna Wintour, known for her unwavering composure, was the first to rise, setting a precedent that the rest of the room instinctively followed. As Priyanka and Nick walked off the stage, they were intercepted by Lady Gaga, whose own journey with fibromyalgia had been publicly documented. "You guys have just changed the game," she whispered, hugging Priyanka with genuine strength. "This is beyond you two now." Backstage, Edward held up his phone to the group. The headlines were already changing in real time. "Priyanka Chopra redefines courage at Met Gala" replaced the sensational speculation of minutes ago. The narrative was changing, not because of PR manipulation, but because of the authenticity that had resonated with everyone in the room. "This doesn't mean it's over," Reese warned, ever pragmatic. "The original leak is still a criminal violation of medical privacy. My team has identified whoever is responsible and is building a case." Her tone made it clear that there would be no mercy for whoever had orchestrated the leak. Lupita, who had been in contact with reputable journalists throughout the episode, reported, "The New York Times and Washington Post are treating this as a story about ethics in the digital age, not gossip." We were able to establish the right framing. The return to the main hall was surprisingly different from the tense exit of earlier. Priyanka and Nick's walk was now punctuated by quiet gestures of solidarity, a handshake here, a nod there, looks of respect that communicated more than words ever could. "Mrs. Chopra Jonas?" A hesitant voice interrupted a moment of relative calm. It was Emma Stone, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "I know this is probably not the time for celebration, but I thought you might need this." The simple gesture, devoid of platitudes or drama, brought the first genuine smile to Priyanka's lips since the crisis began. Nick watched his wife with barely concealed admiration. "You realize what you just did, don't you?" he asked when they had a moment alone. "You turned a violation into a manifesto. That's why I fell in love with you." The buzz in the room had changed tone. What had once been a fashion event was transforming into something more significant, a cultural moment where vulnerability had been elevated above the manufactured perfection that usually dominated such occasions. Event security quietly informed Priyanka and Nick that the person responsible for the leak had been identified, a temporary employee hired specifically for the event but with connections to a notoriously aggressive tabloid website. He is cooperating with authorities now, the security chief said. Apparently the financial offer was substantial. I want to talk to him, Priyanka declared, surprising everyone around her. Nick started to protest, but she gently held up her hand. Not for revenge. I need to understand. Her expression revealed not anger, but genuine curiosity about what would motivate someone to invade so deeply into another person's privacy. In a small, secure room at the back of the museum, Priyanka found herself face to face with a young man in his early 20s, visibly shaken by the magnitude of the consequences of his actions. Why, was all she asked, her voice surprisingly gentle. They said it was just routine. Celebrities, secrets, easy money. He couldn't look her in the eye. I didn't think about the real people affected. I just saw content. The raw honesty of her answer revealed a problem much bigger than this isolated incident, the dehumanization facilitated by digital culture. Meanwhile, in the main ballroom, something extraordinary was happening. Celebrities began sharing their own medical stories, not in grand statements but in genuine conversations that would normally be considered taboo at an event like this. Selena Gomez spoke candidly about her kidney transplant, Emilia Clarke about her aneurysms, Michael J. Fox about living with Parkinson's. The Met Gala, for a few hours, had transformed into a space of authenticity rarely seen at high-profile events. When Priyanka returned to the room, she was greeted by Billie Eilish, whose own journey with Tourette's syndrome had been the subject of public speculation. You just set a precedent, the young artist said, with wisdom beyond her years. The next time someone tries to make a scandal out of someone's health, they'll remember tonight. They'll remember you. Dawn was breaking over New York, and the 2025 Met Gala was entering its final hours. Typically, this would be the time when celebrities would start retiring for exclusive after-parties at penthouses and private clubs. But this evening had taken on a different quality, a collective intimacy that no one seemed eager to abandon. You should go, Lupita insisted, noticing the weariness in Priyanka's eyes. You've already made history tonight. The rest can wait until tomorrow. Nick agreed silently, his arm protectively around his wife's waist. As they prepared to leave, they were surprised by Anna Wintour approaching them with a determination rarely directed at anyone other than a disgraced designer. Priyanka, Nick, she began, with that British precision that had become her trademark, what happened tonight transcended fashion. I would like to discuss a cover for Vogue, not about glamour or style, but about integrity and vulnerability in the public domain. Anna's invitation wasn't just a media opportunity, it was an acknowledgement of the cultural impact of the moment. Priyanka nodded, grateful for the chance to expand on the conversation they had started that night. It would be an honor, Anna. But on one condition, that we include medical experts to demystify autoimmune conditions. As they exited the Met through the back doors, avoiding the media circus that surely awaited at the main entrance, Priyanka and Nick were surprised by an unexpected figure. Meryl Streep, who rarely stayed until the end of these events, was waiting for them with a kind smile. When I was your age, Meryl began, in that voice that had told some of cinema's most powerful stories, we hid my father's Parkinson's disease from the public for years. That was the way to do it back then. What you did today. She paused, searching for the right words. This is cultural evolution in real time. In the car on the way to her hotel, Priyanka finally allowed herself to break down, the tears she had held back for hours finding release in Nick's arms. They weren't tears of sadness or fear, but of relief, the kind that come when a long-carried burden is finally shared. You know what's weird? She mused, the lights of Manhattan streaming past the car window. I spent weeks dreading this becoming public, and now that it has, I feel lighter. Like the secret is heavier than the truth. Nick smiled, gently wiping a tear from her face. It reminds me of a lyric I wrote years ago, sometimes the fear of the jump is worse than the fall. He kissed her forehead reverently. You jumped with such grace that it made everyone around you want to be braver. The next morning, as the digital world processed the events of the previous night, Priyanka woke up to find her phone flooded with notifications. These weren't just messages of support from friends and fans, but something more meaningful. Hashtags like #MyMedicalTruth and #VulnerabilityIsStrength were dominating global trends. "Look at this," Nick said, holding up his tablet. A Guardian article analyzed how the Met Gala moment had catalyzed a global conversation about medical privacy and public figures' right to personal dignity. They're calling it the Chopra effect, when a breach of privacy is turned into a platform for social change. Reese Witherspoon's legal team had been working through the night, and the news was promising. The website that had published the initial leak had not only removed the content, but issued a public apology and agreed to fund an educational initiative on journalistic ethics. Fear of a high-profile lawsuit had been a powerful motivator. 3 weeks later, Priyanka was on the set of her new film when she received a text message from an unexpected source, the young man who had leaked her medical documents. After facing legal consequences for his actions, he had started a project documenting the damage caused by predatory journalism. "Your response changed my life," he wrote. "I am trying to turn my mistake into something meaningful." The Vogue issue with Priyanka and Nick on the cover broke online engagement records. It wasn't your typical glamorous photo shoot, but an intimate portrait of the couple in their home, accompanied by a frank discussion about living publicly with private medical conditions. The article included contributions from medical experts and other celebrities who had been inspired to share their own journeys. 6 months after that night at the Met, Priyanka stood on the UN stage as a Goodwill ambassador, launching a global initiative to protect the medical privacy of public figures and ordinary citizens. What began as a personal violation, she told the attentive assembly, has transformed into a movement for human dignity in the digital age. "Our medical stories are ours to share when we are ready, not commodities to be stolen and sold. And when we choose to share them, on our own terms, we discover that our vulnerability does not weaken us. It connects us. It humanizes us." And as I learned that night at the Met, sometimes our greatest weaknesses can become our most powerful platforms for change. Nick, watching from backstage with unbridled pride, knew that what had started as a nightmare had turned into something neither of them could have foreseen, a new chapter not just in their lives, but in the cultural conversation about celebrity, privacy, and the transformative power of shared truth.